who are joining us. My name is 𝙒𝙗𝙖𝙿𝙀𝙨. I am the founder and CEO of EDGE and of Urban GIS. We have a very special event today. This is March, so we are celebrating Women's Herstory Month, and we have a power-packed panel that we're gonna just get so much great information, so many insights, and we're gonna have some fun too. Because I have to tell you, these ladies, when I came to the backstage, they were already kicking it, having a good time. They all have some California background, so we're just going to enjoy the vibes that they're bringing individually and collectively. So thank you for all of you who are joining us. We're going to try to keep this to an hour, and for those who are on Central Time, this is the Power Lunch Hour, where you can learn about great things in the tech space, great things in terms of looking at equity, social justice, and just trying to move forward this country and this world to be a more equitable place, to be a place where people all feel like they belong and all feel like they have opportunities. So we're going to talk about careers, we're going to talk about GIS, we're going to talk about social justice and all sorts of great things here on this episode. So let's jump right into it. We can hit the next slide. So at EDGE, we're all about two primary things. We're all about bringing great information to the community about the power of GIS and the power of geospatial professions and companies and opportunities and impact of even the tools. And then on the other side, we're trying to bring best practice to our industry, awareness to our industry, a passion for these topics. And so we have these four pillars: diversity recruiting, business and supplier diversity, community engagement, and DEI education and corporate responsibility. And I know that's a bad word now, but the concepts are good. And we don't let, people who are trying to, demonize the efforts of making marginalized communities feel more encouraged, feel more included, feel like they belong. We're not going to stop that work. We're doubling and tripling down, and we are appreciative of our corporate sponsors who are also doubling and tripling down. Urban GIS, who is the core company that helped to found EDGE, GeoMarvel, are just ace sponsor, just so supportive on so many ways, so appreciative of them. North Point Geographic Solutions, who's been with us from the very beginning and continue to support us in so many ways. And Bolton and Mink, who is at every conference, at every turn, there to support us. So we thank all of our sponsors. And we also want to thank the professional organizations that partner with us, from AAG to NSBE to ESRI to ERISA to North Star to AGI, and to so many others that are standing in the gap, that are giving us opportunities to discuss these matters at their conferences, as well as helping to push and promote and just being great partners. And we're here to support them as they are here to support us. And in that spirit of support, we have built something called the EDGE Alliance. And that's a number of small businesses that are coming together to not only support one another, but to provide great opportunities for larger firms to find high quality geospatial firms. And so we had a kickoff event last month in Palm Springs, California at the ESRI Partner Conference. Very well attended. Appreciate all the folks from ESRI and all the other companies that came out to support EDGE, all of the people who sponsored that event. I think we had upwards of 70 people there. Super fun time. Looking forward to doing that again next time. And we even had a chance to celebrate the birthday of one of our panelists. So we always have a great time. So shout out to all the EDGE Alliance companies that helped to make that event what it was. Nelson Intelligence Solutions, Voyager, New Light Technologies, GeoMarvel, Embedded Alliance, and so many others who've been so supportive. And we look forward to building this alliance of great companies who want to make a difference in the community and who are also looking to do some amazing things in this industry. So coming up next month, I'm super, super excited. I have 3 sessions that I'll be leading, talking to a bunch of students as well as probably newer professionals about becoming a Jedi Knight and what does it mean to be, responsible with these great tools that we have. And we're also going to talk about methodologies, cheat codes, and advantages. We start off sometimes in some places where we don't have all of the things we need, but if we can work with the network and make that network work for us, we can really do some amazing things. And then I'm also going to talk about, being kind of the person who maybe wasn't so sought after. How can you position yourself for better success within a company or getting hired, and just in general taking some of your disadvantages and making them advantages for you. So shout out to AAG for sponsoring me to come out to Hawaii to speak to students and others about these things. And then next month in our EDGEinar, we're going to stay on this academic track, and we're going to talk about academic ascension. Some awesome professors from HBCUs, some retired professors who are just industry leaders for many years around social justice and equity. We're going to have a great conversation and look at the challenges within this space and how we can improve diversity, how we can improve supporting one another and building that pipeline for the future. So a lot of cool stuff coming along the way. But let's talk about what we're here for today. The impact of women in GIS, and the impact we know is mighty and growing by the day. We have three wonderful panelists that are joining us: Christy Pleiss from Esri, Yolanda Richards also from Esri, and Dr. Danielle Jennings from, you're going to have to remind me, your organization, and tell us all about it, but a longtime tech and DEI advocate. They're all folks who have either lived or are from California, women who have made their mark in this industry and are continuing to make sure that they can make an impact for the next generation. So really excited to have you all aboard. Please welcome our panelists. Love to just hear about who you are, your background, how you got here, and some things you hope to share today. So let's start with you, Christy.
Great. I see my slide. Hello, everyone. Keith, thank you for getting things started. It's really an honor to be here. I'm really honored to be part of this panel. I guess a little bit about me. I am with Esri. I have been with Esri for 23 years, which means I started when I was 10 years old. So, it's okay. I grew up in upstate New York, and I had the opportunity to go to college in Colorado and kind of start a new life, and discovered geography, cartography, and GIS through that, and got my bachelor's in geography. And through a work study job that I had at the library, I ended up getting connected in with the NOAA National Geophysical Data Center in Boulder, and started out as a student assistant, and then had a contract as a research scientist there. And it was one of those things that just led to some amazing next steps in my life, which was to go to University of Wisconsin, Madison, and get a master's in engineering, which was a big jump from going from geography. But I did it, and I learned a lot. It was tough. Also being, very few women in the engineering program that I was in. But I ended up with a master's in geospatial information engineering, which was kind of emerging at the time. And since then, I've been with Esri in a variety of different roles. Started out as a GIS developer on what became the ArcGIS for aviation product. I spent many years as an advisor for the Esri Advantage program, helped build the practice of being an advisor, managed that line of business for quite some time. And then over the years, my role expanded in helping oversee other program offerings, branching out and taking on an enablement function among many other areas. And today, I really enjoy having a cross-cutting role in Esri Professional Services as part of the senior leadership team. I love what I do. I love getting to work across my division of professional services, but also across Esri and in the geospatial industry at large. And it's been an honor to work with you, Keith, and get to know EDGE and be part of EDGE the last few years. I'm learning a lot all the time, but I'm just, happy to be here. So there's my long-winded intro.
No, that's what we're here for. We're here to learn about you all and how you got here and what your career tracks are. It's so inspiring, your story and your pathway. And I learn something every time. And as someone else who went to a Big Ten school for engineering, I know that struggle. So kudos to you for getting that graduate degree and not stopping there and just keep pushing forward. And she's such a modest person, and she does so much in terms of supporting EDGE and these missions. And so we're very thankful to have you, Christy.
Thank you.
All right, our next panelist, I feel like I've known her for years and years and years. And I don't know, it's like, you know, we were in the same hometown of Chicago, but I really got to know her while in New York. And so it's always an interesting thing. We talk about travel, we talk about music, we talk about poetry and artistry, but we also talk about, you know, how we can move the needle. Please welcome Yolanda Richards. Yolanda, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for the intro. And I'm really happy to have this conversation and just to be part of this panel of women doing really powerful things. But as Keith mentioned, I'm based in the Chicagoland area. I've been at Esri for almost 6 years now, counting. I started my career actually as an urban planner. And what was really intriguing to me, you know, I come from a family of engineers. My dad was an engineer. He's worked for LA County for over 30 plus years. And so I think what's been very interesting is kind of looking at the way that he empowered 3 daughters, that he has no sons, but just the way in which he empowered 3 daughters to really be passionate about the work that we're doing, but also making sure that we were not being misled or treated a certain way because we were women, more specifically Black women. And so that always stuck with me. And I think when I think about my career and just what really took place and why I wanted to get into not only urban planning, but economic development leading to GIS work was Hurricane Katrina. And so when you think about the work of GIS, everything is based on location and the importance of location and how this amazing tool of GIS really helps to address, expose, but explain what's happening based on your location. Hurricane Katrina really rocked my world. I was deeply impacted by the injustices that were taking place with this natural disaster and how it impacted particular communities. And so for me, I was like, I need to better understand this and get a fundamental awareness of how cities are built, how they're designed, how they impact people in place. And so that led to me studying urban planning. I think it led to so many other really unique opportunities, which led to going to grad school in the Midwest. I'm from California, born and raised. And so, you know, I try to rep the West Coast and the Midwest. But I think in many ways, urban planning not only exposed me to GIS technology, but just really understanding the importance of place and better understanding how diversity is not a niche. It's not something that can be a fad. It's something that's critically important to not only addressing the differences, which aren't deficient, but they're important in terms of understanding people's lived experiences, and that really having a weight to how we can solve a lot of critical issues when you have diversity of thought, perspective, and experiences. And so I think as a woman in this field, you know, Christy, you mentioned, especially in the engineering field, it can be a lonely place when you're the only person. And I think what was important for me was to not only be in a field that was about something I was passionate and cared about, but also recruiting other people, because I think, again, the lived experience, but then also understanding that these perspectives are important to bring to these conversations are really important, because what a boring life to live if you have people who think the same, walk the same, talk the same. It's just not thriving. And I think really looking at the importance of women and their place and their role in terms of being able to have diversity of thought was really important, especially at Esri. And it stayed with me for a very long time after going to school and just getting involved. And so just a quick note, I know my background really shows North Star. So I'm really blessed to be part of the North Star of GIS board. And North Star is essentially an organization that really embraces the roots of identity for people of African descent, but then also looking at intersectionality in terms of racial justice, equity, and geography. And so I think that's really important to really support the African diaspora and making sure that we're connected not only here in this country, but also the diaspora in places like the Caribbean, in the continent of Africa, in so many places where there are people of African descent who really care about the work of geography and location-based technology. So I'm really honored to be a part of that. We just launched one of our events for Women's History Month, which is really powerful. And again, just kind of going back to that diversity of thought, we are really fortunate to have Gladys West. And if you haven't learned about her, please study her. She is an American mathematician. She played a huge role in the development of global positioning systems, also known as GPS. So her role was really powerful, because if you read or listen to her story, she came from a family of sharecroppers. She came from a family where she was deeply involved in what was happening in her school, but also in a segregated environment. And it's hard to separate that lived experience and seeing how she was able to use her experience in the work that she was doing as a mathematician. Her work is phenomenal, is profound. But again, if you are able to understand her lived experience as a Black woman living in segregated South, you can't separate those experiences for how she was able to persevere, push hard, work hard, but then also use that lived experience in the work that she was able to contribute when it came to GIS or GPS applications. So I say that again because I really believe in this work, and I think it's important for us to do this collectively as people who care about this work, but also want it to really embody the way that people can be involved in the process. So I'm done. Thank you for having me on this panel.
Thank you. You've already set the tone and set the bar so high. You always represent. So glad to have you here. Wonderful nuggets. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Dr. Danielle, who is actually slated to be a part of our January EDGEinar, but all things happen for a reason. And this was her time. And I think this is the right panel for her to be here to share more about who she is. She's done some amazing things. Dr. Danielle, tell us about yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Keith. And thank you just for allowing me to be on this panel with these amazing women. And I just want to say this work is so very important to me as far as my background. So I have been a diversity, equity, inclusion practitioner for over 10 years. And it originally started when I was working with a firm where I would do a lot of compliance work and a lot of DEI training. From that, those various projects, I just realized that companies really needed help with strategy, needed help trying to making sure those strategies were operationalized, and also making sure that they were able to embed DEI throughout their organization. So I did decide to start my own firm, and originally from Southern California, and born and raised in Los Angeles, currently reside in the Bay Area, and I'll kind of share a little bit about that. But when I broke off to my own firm, I really decided I wanted to focus on more of consulting work and just working with leaders to make sure that they had those strategies in place and were able to work with them to understand how DEI really connected to the business, right? Because we always hear that DEI is important, and it's important because it helps you be more innovative. It helps you connect closer to your clients. So just really wanted to make sure that I was working with them to help them with their strategy, because sometimes it's really hard when you're trying to think of, what is the return on investment with DEI, but just kind of guiding them through that and letting them know best practices and sharing research, and also helping them just really, present that, get that buy-in from their senior leaderships. So I have done some amazing work, very passionate about tech. I'm not an engineer like some of the other people on the panel, but my tech experience, my father was in tech. And so that passion for tech, love for tech has been there since I was young. And so I just knew when I wanted to focus on a diversity problem, I wanted to look at the current business opportunities. Where could I make the most impact? What were some of the industries that were struggling? So I decided to focus my attention on the tech industry. And so from there, I've been able to do some work on some cool initiatives. I worked with the city of Los Angeles on their Women in Tech initiative, which was amazing. I've done some work with AnitaB.org, which really is committed to advancing women in tech. I work with organizations like BUILT, which is Blacks United in Leading Technology. And all of these organizations, I'm able to, give back, share, consult, but also the part of me wanting to give back and making sure that, underrepresented people are not left out of the tech industry. Tech is embedded, or in every industry, and we need to be represented. So I just do my part to make sure that I contribute and I'm able to be there and support women, and, being a woman of color, making sure I add that lens to it as well. And sometimes the intersectionality piece we don't think as much about, but also being able to share, be a thought partner on intersectionality issues as well. So I am in the Bay now. kind of like the heart of the tech industry, continue to do great work here. And I'd love it. I'd love it. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. So inspiring, and there's just so many things to pull out, and it's got me so ready to just jump into the conversation with you all, because you have such amazing backstories and current stories and ways you could influence. So first, let me say this is being recorded. This will be available on YouTube. So for all of you, who are watching now, or are just aware of this, please share this. Please share this with so many people, because their stories need to be heard. There's so many young women who will be inspired by this. I hope that there's so many men who will be inspired by this, because one of the things I just took away from all of you all is the power and the influence. As a person who has 2 daughters, who've always tried to tell my daughters they can do anything and everything that they want to do, how important it is for dads and for men in the community to inspire young women to believe that they can be in tech, they can be engineers, they can be influential, they can do all these different things. And they can also still do things that might be particular to them. They can take their empathy traits, they can take their other nurturing aspects and bring and add value to the world that sometimes seems to be so male dominated and masculine energy dominated. And we don't glorify and uplift and encourage women to be their true selves and still be tech people and this and that. And so I'm a true believer, as a believer of God, that we are made in his image. So we can be multiple things. We don't have to just be this tech robot, and that's all we can, appreciate and really just love that you all have lived that throughout your life. So let's start that off as the first question. As women in tech industries and in places of being underrepresented, what are some challenges that you face, and how have your upbringing and just your value system help you to push through those challenges? Anyone can jump in on that.
I can start. I'll be brief too. I think the biggest challenge is trying to make sure that I maintain my voice. I think, again, a lot of it just takes time and experience. I think it's really more about being able to learn from other people too. I think my issue has been my voice, and in a way not shunning my light and feeling as if I am living onto certain negative stereotypes that many women get projected upon being. So they're to this or to that. And so what I've done is kind of hide behind that and try to prove, oh, okay, I'm not like this. I don't want to be boxed into this idea. But it's also caused me to not be able to be as vocal, to be as very intentional. So that is what I would say has been very difficult for me. There's an intersectionality focused on that. Again, we're focusing on women, but I think it's also important, Keith, you mentioned this, the importance of kind of the levels as to being a woman, but also being a Black woman, also being first generation. Like there's all these different levels that kind of fit into how I navigate the world as a woman with these other identities. And so I think the biggest thing for me has been my voice. And I think the other piece has been finding mentorship. That one is something I'm actually trying to break that mold, because I didn't have the kind of mentorship that I would have liked to have when I started my career. It's just beautiful to see other people doing something that you're passionate about. Again, I got that from my father. Again, but him being a man, it just had a different narrative. Also being my father, it was just different. I think if I had other role models of women who look like me, who had similar experiences, I would have been able to navigate what it means to be able to advocate for a raise, or what it means to negotiate if I got a job offer and I was like, this salary and the benefits are not cutting it. So things like that were something I wish I had. And it's actually pushing me to say, okay, I didn't have it. I need to make sure that I can be that example and be a mentor to other women, and making sure that they're being supported in that way. So those are kind of like 2 challenges that that stick out to me, that I face challenges. So again, having a voice, just making sure that my voice is being heard, and then the mentorship piece.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else jump in, please?
I'll jump in. So I was thinking about this a bit. Something that I'd say it's taken me until recently to finally be comfortable with this, but to just be myself and not try to be someone else. It's kind of been this epiphany of, wait a minute, if I just am myself, bring what I can to the table, then I'm adding value. I was having a conversation during my review a few weeks ago, and I have a tendency to feel like I have to be like person X or person Y or my colleagues. and have their skills. And in my my peer group, it's mostly men who are amazing and very supportive of me, which I appreciate. But I've always felt like, well, I have to be more like them. I have to be like them to be able to be successful in this executive role. And I found that I actually perform better when I just succumb to, this is me. And that means I'm silly, I'm wacky, I'm going to have my hand gestures and do the things that I do. And then I come in with, you know, a lot of empathy, sometimes too much empathy. But I think it makes my team stronger when I am myself. And I want to set that example for others in the organization. And I know that that's making an impact. It's sort of like changing, what does it mean to be a woman executive? It doesn't have to be, you know, maybe what I imagined it was when I watched movies in the 80s, right? You know, like it's not, it's changing, and we can kind of change that shape. And, you know, and I have some lenses, but not as many as those of you on the phone. I mean, I'm a white woman. I try to bring what I can, but also use a platform to give other people a voice too. And I'm always open to learning. And I just, yeah, I'm honored to be here. So thank you.
You're one of the biggest advocates, and this is what EDGE is all about, is diversity. And so even in this DEI space, we don't need it to just be people of color. We need all voices and everybody at the table and everybody, you know, doing their part. And you're certainly a great representative of that. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Dr. Danielle, I know you got some thoughts for me.
Yeah, I have. Yes, I wanted to, like, what Christy was saying really resonated with me about being authentic and being yourself. I mean, I think as women, you know, we're always thinking like, okay, maybe we need to be a certain way when we come into a space. I know for me, when I have entered the tech field, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that people will accept me? And, you know, you kind of have all these things in your mind. But what has always been successful for me is being authentic, being who I am. And that helps me kind of, you know, add value, right? And so I take those strengths and I, you know, make sure that, you know, they're known, like you said, use your voice. So I would say being authentic has worked for me. I just know sometimes, you know, we talk about like code switching and all those things that may come to mind. And I was like, you know, I'm going to just be me and it's going to be okay. And whoever likes it, great. Whoever doesn't, that's great as well. But I just feel like it's important for us to show up and be our best selves when we are who we are, and stop trying, because it's too hard for us to try to be something we're not, right? You can only keep that up for so long. So I come in, be myself, add value. And then the second thing that comes to mind, kind of what Yolanda was saying, you know, tech it's hard to navigate. Like, it's a lot going on. It's constant change, ambiguity. So what's worked for me is also finding your tribe, finding that community to support you. I know when I moved to the Bay, you know, I leaned on my community, you know, that here, like, I need to get my hair done. I need to find a doctor, you know, a dermatologist specializes in my skin. There's so many different things where your community can help you if you're having a rough day, and, you know, whatever it may be, the challenges that we may face as a woman, a Black woman, that you lean on your community to help get you through. So I would say be authentic, find your tribe, and that really is helpful for me.
I love it. Such great advice. Such great advice. I know a lot of people are going to benefit from what you all are sharing. I want to take it from maybe the personal level to the corporate level, because we have an interesting dynamic here. We have Christy Plice, who's a senior executive, and I believe her division is almost 1,000 people. And as a, you know, I think, what are you, second in command in that division? Super responsible, you know, area that, you know, has a lot that comes with, you know, trying to influence and manage those sort of things. And then Dr. Danielle, you do consulting for companies. What are some key things in this current era where, you know, DEI is taking a lot of steps forward? It's seemingly taking some steps back with corporations and in certain states. How should we navigate as, you know, corporate entities and you know, with employees of different walks and challenges, and balance things in a way where we can move forward? I'll let you start that to Danielle, and then Christy, and then Yolanda. Love to get your thoughts too, working for a large corporation.
Right. So thanks for the question, Keith. I think we are in a time where DEI is being, under attack. And I just know trying to navigate this, the best way I can describe it is, really still staying really close to your leaders and thinking about your values in your company and why you decided to do this work to begin with. And so just reminding people it's still important. Now, we may have to do it a different way and focus our energies and on different, I would say different strategies, but I would just letting them know like our values are still being inclusive, diversity of thought, all that still is important. Now, when I work with leaders, sometimes, early on, I was really focused on that diversity and recruitment. So most companies aren't recruiting right now. So what can we focus on now? So a lot of the work that we're doing now is more of the retention. And what that comes with is developing strategies around developing your talent that is currently there. So thinking about programs, whether it be mentorship programs, sponsorship programs, to develop your talent so you can retain who's currently in the organization has been really key. So although we may have some challenges right now, I think it's really important to also, stay really close to some of your leaders, whether it be your legal team, to understand, okay, what can we do, and have those parameters in place for that guidance, but still continue to do the work and not back down from it.
Christy?
Yeah, yes, this is definitely top of mind as well. I've been thinking quite a bit about this, in at least in my division at Esri. Yes, we are about 1,000 people, which is just mind-blowing to me, and it's a very just vast organization with many different functions and roles and lines of business, and we work in a matrix, and that comes with its own different types of challenges, and we have to have things that help us sort of thread the needle through the organization to help people feel connected. And we do that through communities. We call them role-based communities. So say project managers or developers or system architects. And then we also have tech centers and other areas that sort of help people find those common threads. And in 2020, as many organizations did, we did launch a DEI council for our division for professional services. And we were learning on the fly, figuring out what does this need to be? What does it mean to have a council? What is the role of a council? What are the types of things that we need to do? How do we communicate them? And it was hard. It was bumpy, lots of emotion, lots of vulnerability, which is good. It's what I want to invite to that. But I think those first few years we were just trying to figure it out, right? It gave people a place to talk and share. But as time went on, and Dr. Danielle, you mentioned this, you have to tie things to the business. I know, you mentioned too, Dr. Danielle, staying close to the leaders. It's important, as staff and teams, leaders and executives need to know how they can use their voice, right? It's how can we help? What are the things that we need to be looking at? And how do we tie those to actual business problems or things that we can impact? Because one thing that I've found to be challenging, I know we all want to solve the biggest issues. We want to do it. We want to solve the biggest issues. But when we try to do that and we're not making incremental progress on things that are tangible, it gets really, you can feel so deflated. And so what we've been trying to do is sort of peel back the onion and say, what are some things we can do? Like, what can we do? And not worry so much about what we might feel we can't, but the impact that we can. And so for our DEI Council this year, in fact, we had one of our amazing change management consultants come through and help sort of reimagine what our DEI Council needs to be. And we've just invited some new members, which I can't wait to hear from them. We're going to launch with them in a few weeks. And as a leader, I'm eager to hear their ideas and thoughts and how we can continue to do better. So
thank you for sharing. And what you kind of also talked about is not only the internal side, but I know you've been very responsible for putting out pilot programs and things to help with business diversity, which is
Yes.
something a lot of people don't talk about. And as a business owner, I know the exponential impact that it can be, because as we have healthier and stronger companies, we can impact the community, we can hire, and we're already passionate and engaged about these things. And so working with companies like Esri who get the empowerment on that side is really important. And to that point, Yolanda, I want to turn it to you, who've always been an advocate of small businesses, promoting small businesses to the city of Chicago, promoting partnerships. Love to hear your thoughts on these issues.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciated both Dr. Jenkins and Chrissy's perspective on this, and I agree with a lot of that's been shared. I mean, Dr. Jenkins, DEI work is being under attack. And, I had to, I always, Keith, you've known me for a while, and, I just keep it 100. So I was trying to say, how do I say it and do that? But it doesn't matter. I think we have to be honest about truth telling. I think we're under attack because we don't want to be honest and telling the truth. I think in many spaces, and I want to be careful saying this because I've had the unique experience of working in local government, like literally working for a city municipality. I've worked in public schools. I've worked in nonprofits, and now working at Esri. This is my unique experience. I did work at Groupon. That's a funny fact. A lot of people don't know I worked at Groupon, which was funny and hilarious, but this is my real, experience working in corporate America. And it's just interesting because whether it's looking at issues of gender, looking at issues of racism, they manifest in all different sectors, but differently. When you think about a corporation, it's about business. It's about, what is the supply and demand and what is, the opportunities that play to make money and revenue. And I would argue we have statistics and data to show that when we don't have opportunities for diversity, there is a loss. So let's focus on that. When Esri, had a very strong focus on putting out workshops and conversations about issues related to racism, what was so powerful and telling is that we had one of the highest number of participants engaging in those conversations. So out of all the workshops that we had, whether it was focused on, landmines or whatever it was, the highest number of people who were attending these workshops were focused on issues related to racial equity. So that says a lot. That says that municipalities, corporations, nonprofits, the health, like so many different sectors are actually saying this is an issue for our organization. So how do we respond to it? I think the other piece at hand is the co-opting. And again, I'm very transparent about this. Christy, you mentioned, historically, again, 2020 was a very pivotal year. We had COVID, which is still crazy. I think we need to do studies about how that impacted us to this day. But we also had George Floyd. We were dealing with the issues of racial injustice just from how many people were dying of COVID, racially speaking, based on location. That's all GIS. And then we had this other reality of a man who was murdered in front of our eyes in Minneapolis, and the world responded very uniquely towards it. You also had corporations, you had different people pledging that they want to take this seriously. We need data on that because I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed. And so my perspective is to say this is a repeated behavior that I feel we are not being truthful in our conversations about what is factually, not even facts, what is the truth. When we talk about DEI being taken away, it's because we're hiding this. And I'm going to say something very funny, but it's true. TikTok is funny to me because social media is creating this nuanced reality of how people get access to information. That's also being under attack. You have Gen Z who is putting out information and information about history that people don't know. And so what do I say to that? I think we have to be better truth tellers. The truth hurts. The truth doesn't mean that you have to abide by those experiences that people endured. But a lot of people are in this warped idea of hiding what is just factually true, historically and presently to this day. And what my fear is that by removing the truth, it creates these isms, it creates these narratives that we're repeating history essentially, as opposed to just saying, you know what, our history is ugly, it's ugly, but we have the power to actually make it transition and be different. And we have the choice, and we're making very interesting choices that eliminate truth telling. This stuff is hard. Christy, you mentioned it. People got emotional, people got enraged but I think people were free. People were able to actually say, why are these communities set up the way they are? Why is redlining a huge thing in Chicago? Why is it a tale of, I would say, 3 cities? Why, again, why? You start asking questions and you're able to get information that makes you go, wow, I had no idea. We can never let this happen again. And so I think we have to, in my opinion, we have to talk the talk. DEI work is not a fad, it's a state of mind. So you have to be able to push that at the top. You have to support Dr. Jenkins and her work. You have to elevate her work because it's important. You have to elevate Christy and what she's trying to do within Esri. If it's becoming this grassroots feel-good kind of conversation, I'm not really interested. What I'm interested in doing is saying we're going to put investment, which means training, because we don't know what we're doing. We can't create these ideas where we have to be honest and say we don't know. And we need people like Dr. Jenkins to educate us and say, this is why you all are failing, right? Because this is not about making you feel good. You're failing in these areas because you're not hitting the mark in this. You're not talking about systematic racism. You're not talking about the fact for various decades, women were not even included in areas of certain workforce. If you can't have those truthful conversations, I don't know how we're going to bend the needle. We need to have conversations about why companies like, what you're doing, Keith, need to be at the forefront. You have a trajectory of success. Why are we elevating your business and other businesses that need to be at the table? There's a narrative. And again, if we don't talk about the truth and be honest about the truth, it's very hard to actually push this work. So we have to empower and elevate the people doing this work, but be honest about the fact that we're scared, we don't want to do it, and we need to break that idea of why we don't want to do it sometimes. So.
Well, I'm gonna go church on you. I mean, this is what we're here to do, is to have those uncomfortable conversations, because change will not happen. We're not here to just be comfortable, because as we're comfortable, the uncomfortable on a larger scale continues to happen. And what you described, Yolanda, to me is almost sounds like a nice narcissistic relationship cycle, right? We have something bad happen that takes us to the bridge, and then we get some love bombing going on, and then the gaslighting starts happening all over again. Is like, and the projection, these things are bad. And then we can get the soundbite journalism that will say letters like DEI and put a person's face who misused the opportunity to do some great things because they were personally greedy. Doesn't mean systematically what we're all trying to do is bad, and all these concepts have no merit whatsoever. But unfortunately, many of us are sheeple out here, and we don't do the due diligence, and we cannot navigate these things. So I really appreciate your bravery in being a truth teller. And that brings me to something I'm going to come right back to you, Yolanda, and then love to get in some thoughts from the other ladies. Is we have a special calling within this geospatial industry. You mentioned redlining. That's a real part of the American history where people were intentional based upon race and ethnicity and these other things to marginalize communities and people. And those effects still have impact to this day. And had they had GIS back then, this would have been all GIS analysts who were doing these things and literally setting up government policy. And so now, if our job is to create a platform where there's equity, we have that much more responsible, I would think, as geospatial professionals. And this is a great way for people who want to have social impact, who may not be into GIS and don't know about it, to say, you could be at the front lines of these decisions and these policies and looking at the data and helping to influence them. How should we take it that much more seriously in our industry, if no other? Yolanda?
I appreciate how you've been framed that, and again, I'm originally from California. I've been in the Chicagoland area for over a decade. And I mean, just the city itself is a case study in many ways. People study Chicago just because of redlining. I can talk about blockbusting. I can talk about contracts that were sold to African Americans where they actually thought they were getting mortgages, but they were just long-term rental agreements. So you think about the idea of this happening for decades and Black families not being able to build wealth. And then you look at certain areas of Chicago and you say, well, why are they like that? Stuff like this makes sense. I think going back to the storytelling, I tell people this all the time. The storytelling has to be very intentional. I think when you think about local government, and I'm seeing this a lot in Chicago, I can't speak for other cities, but I think as GIS advocates, as people who care about location, I think we have to really use our technology for storytelling. I don't think it's as innovative as you think. I think it's just using some of the tools and the resources we have. We have tools that give you insight about business trends from a locational perspective. Dare I say, just focusing on story maps is one of our tools that's powered by ArcGIS Online. But just storytelling is a critical thing. And I think in many ways, I talk about this a lot, but there are a lot of folks, we've had to break the idea of what GIS is in terms of boxing it. We're not always solving the problem. What I would like to argue is that we're exposing the problem. Sometimes we can't resolve the problem. It might take communities, it might take policy, but I think the biggest thing that you do in any kind of mapping or any type of locational intelligence platform you're doing is exposing something. You're telling a story. And some of those stories are co-opted. And I think we have to just do a really good job of making sure people can see the story. I'm gonna share one story and it blew people away. I used to volunteer at a prison. I used to volunteer in a prison when I was in grad school. And I can't believe that I did this, but one of the things I had to do was kind of present an overview about my degree in urban planning. And all I showed them was a map of Chicago. This was an all-male facility. Most of them were coming from the Chicago area, and I was volunteering in Danville, which is a city south of Chicago. I showed them a map. I showed them one map, and the map literally showed areas of just lower income families and educational attainment. And that spoke a lot to them. All they did was look at the map and say, oh my gosh, the areas in red, because red represented low educational attainment, I would say 80% of the men at the facility said, I lived there. I lived there. So there is a direct correlation to educational attainment and living in a lower income area. And then you think about these men being in prison. One of the things that the men said to me directly, they said, Yolanda, I really think if I just had a better education, I wouldn't be here. So it's exposing. I didn't really do that much. I didn't even try to give my social justice. I just showed them something that had a correlation to their lived experience, to where they lived. And they were able to put the dots together. So the problem was addressed. The thing that was exposed was very clear. It's not necessarily me making the decision. I have to be an advocate. I think that's important. But I think what we need to start doing, and I know people are doing it, but it has to be elevated in a higher way, is to expose the problem using these visualizations, using this data. Data in many ways I feel is co-opted. I think sometimes we distort data to tell a certain truth that actually doesn't expose the real truth. And so I feel that storytelling has to be a big part of how you address this to change policy, to have people's hearts exposed, to have people look at the bigger issue of injustice, and making sure that you have multiple people doing it simultaneously, doing it at the same time. So what's worked for me very well has been storytelling, telling these stories, because unfortunately, some of the narratives are not being put out there. So people actually don't know. They say, had I known this, we wouldn't have done X, Y, Z. Oh, you're muted, Keith.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So well stated. So appreciate everything that you shared. I love to say that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a GIS is worth 1,000,000. And we resonate with the visual because there's a certain starkness to the reality that when you can see it and you can connect with space and location, and we know that where really matters. And so, Christy, I know these are matters that matter to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this intersectionality around GIS and the impact that it has on our society.
I was most eager to chime in because, Yolanda, when you talked about storytelling, and I'm picturing you up there, telling these stories and inspiring people, and what you're also doing is empowering them and exciting them to learn how to use the tools themselves to solve the problems, right? So like I think about, Yolanda and I work for EDGEinar. Part of our mission is to empower others to be able to make better decisions, right? And make the world a better place through using this technology. So to inspire by saying, here's a story, it actually wasn't that hard to do this. It's telling something simple. You can do this too. And Keith, you mentioned it as well, right? Like it's inspiring people who maybe didn't realize that there were so many different opportunities in the geospatial field to become a practitioner, become an expert, become so vital to your organization, right? And maybe in a role that your organization doesn't have in place yet. So there's just so many, but I'm picturing you, Yolanda, inspiring people with those stories. And I was hearing myself echo for a second. But yeah, I agree. I think the more we can get tools in people's hands and with the right types of enablement materials and lessons and understanding, we're going to make a big difference.
Thank you for sharing that. And there is so much power in the tools and Esri tools. And I love Esri's commitment in the space. Sorry, it's looking to grow it not only within your corporation, but to your point, within the industry and within the world. And I know the founder of Esri, that's something that's very near and dear to his heart, and a real key part of where he's taken the company, has always had the company on that track. And especially now in this time where we need these tools like never before to see the injustice, to see where we can make the change, and to see the disparities, because that's part of the problem, I think. So sorry, wow, having problems. So many people cannot imagine or kind of visualize it because it's not their lived experience. So it becomes difficult for them to be passionate or be connected. And so Dr. Danielle, we know you don't come from the mapping tech world, but you get these issues. Love to get your feedback.
Yeah, I don't come from the mapping, but it was very interesting to listen to Yolanda and Christy share their thoughts. I mean, just when I thought about it, and I thought of like gentrification and just how I just understand how, like you were saying, like Yolanda, like the correlations, like telling the stories. And what are those correlations, whether it be, I'm in the Bay and I see the cities that have been gentrified because of the tech industry, right? And people who have had to move out, or, is there that correlation between homelessness, crime? So I just think of different things when we talk about, when you were talking about GSI. But yes, I just think it's really important. Keep one more time, say the question again, because I had my thought with the GSI.
With the GIS and mapping and just in general, doing the work that you do, being in the tech industry, knowing that where matters. And what I would say is this: we're all learning GIS is becoming one of these kind of tie that binds technologies. So no matter what tech sector you're in, where matters. And even though you're not in this space, I'm sure you've had some level of exposure to see how it all ties together, because most of the data we deal with has some location aspects, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I mean, I just think about just a lot of our decisions are, based on data and demographics. And I think about, that really kind of drives our strategy. And so, we do work a lot with, what are the, like, just say employee engagement, how is our employee engagement in various demographics, whether it be our Black, Latinx, our various demographics in the corporation. So I would just say that really drives the data. The geography really drives how we approach various problems in the organization and what we prioritize and when we develop that strategy.
Love it. Love it. So we've got about 7 minutes or so left. I want to make sure I give everyone a chance to share anything, no question out here. So just anything that you want to share with our audience and things that you think are inspirational, closing thoughts. I'll start with you, Dr. Danielle.
Yes, so thank you so much for this wonderful panel. I would just say, I know DEI, there's a lot going on in the industry, and I just want people to remain, make it a priority, and making sure that, leaders support it and making sure that there's resources behind it because it's still needed. And I would just always see how you can make an impact even outside of your organization, whether it be joining an organization that focuses on diversity and inclusion, because you can approach it another way. But just really allowing people to know, like, this work is still important, be a part of it. It's great. And at the end of the day, it's about the next generation. I do this work because I want to make sure the next generation has opportunities. I'm focused right now on equity, right? Making sure everybody has opportunities to resources and opportunities to jobs, and making sure that our voices are still in this industry, even when I'm no longer here. children, nieces and nephews, the work is still important. So I would just encourage you, even if it's hard and it's challenging, to stay the course. It's worth it, and don't give up.
Love it. Love it. Christy?
I was looking back at I like to take a lot of notes. I'm always writing things down when I'm listening, but I don't know, it's quite a few things. Something I was thinking about too, or maybe it's a bit of an ask, is as leaders, we don't know what we don't know. I have found situations where there's an assumption that, if there's an issue or somebody's feeling a certain way, or we've got an issue, that it's known. It's not always known. And when people assume that it's known, then that can lead to bad feelings, right? Or, hey, no one cares. They're not taking care of these issues. But I say, we don't know what we don't know. And one thing that I've really appreciated as a leader is people who are comfortable to open up and give a call and say, did you know about this? Or, hey, I need some help. I try to be an action-oriented person. Like, that's what I do. And I know I can't fix everything, but I always say, like, just, you got to say it, you got to tell me. Like, let's talk through it. Maybe everything's fine. I think there's also, in the day and age with so much communication, there's messages, there's emails, there's blogs, there's messages on Teams, and there's no way for everybody to see everything, right? It's like you communicate something once, it doesn't mean that everybody got the memo. So it's a continued communication is needed, and also to try not to assume, right? Try not to make assumptions. I know I'm guilty of it too. Everything must be fine, but it's not always the case. So, but I guess that's my big thing, is we don't know what we don't know. Please communicate and share.
I love it. And in that vein, I'm going to let you close it, Yolanda. And this is a safe space to share. You could always keep it a buck. And I love what you haven't held back before. So go ahead and close us out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, and I said it earlier, elevating the people doing the work. I mean, Dr. Jenkins is on this line right now. Hit her up on LinkedIn. Hit up people that are doing this work. And it's a humility issue. You have to humble yourselves. And this goes beyond people who have experience and people who don't have experience in DEI. People who have experience still need support. You're always going to have a loophole. And so I think everyone has to really be humble in this work, whether you have more lived experience, whether you have more experience studying and learning this. We have to be learners in this. There are things that we just don't know. And it happens in two ways. One, by educating yourself on these issues, understanding your community, understanding your company, but then also hiring the people who've been doing it, because some of us just don't know how to do this. And it takes someone from the outside to provide that perspective that can humble you quickly. I think the other thing too, there's a reason why it's called diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the biggest concerns I would always have is, someone gave, I don't know if I'm gonna mess this up, but you think about a salad, and a salad has, if you like what's in the salad, you have tomatoes, you have cucumbers, you have all these different mixes. They're intentional for its unique, purpose. You don't blend a salad, and so what I get concerned about is we sometimes try to create this narrative about everyone being in the same place. And it's just not true. This goes back to understanding your community. Keith, as a Black man running a business based in Chicago, that's going to manifest and come and show up differently than a woman-owned business that might be coming from another area. And so honoring those differences, again, I want to say honoring, because again, we create these deficiencies as if they're less than, or it's just very scary. And so we have to do a better job of recognizing these things. This is the whole colorblind conversation. The goal is not to be colorblind. The goal is to say, I actually see you, hear you, and understand your lived experience. And so I think we need to honor that within the DEI work, because what I've seen, this is my personal take, there's been a blending. And the blending is not the goal. Because the blending erases those lived experiences. It creates this idea that I don't want to actually see you. I just want to actually blend everything so I don't address the bigger issue. And that's not going to help. We have to honor and recognize who is right in front of us and understand those lived experiences so we can see how we can actually move forward collectively. but it's those lived experiences that make you really powerful, make you perseverant, make you, understand something that may be different from someone else's lived experiences. And so we have to see people. So that, I think with the DEI work, we have to do a better job of seeing people. And it doesn't mean erasing them. It's acknowledging them and seeing them for who they are.
I love it. The university model, diversity, unity through diversity. We appreciate the diverse backgrounds, ideas. We don't have to eradicate them. We can find commonality, we can find unity and build around that and continue to expand our own horizons and palettes. So thank you so much, ladies. This has been a wonderful panel. I feel like we got to do it again. And love to get feedback from the audience. Sorry I wasn't able to engage the audience. I knew we were going to have so much we had to get a hold of here. But you can always send us an email at info@𝙤𝙤𝙙𝙀𝙁 Please encourage others to check out this podcast, this EDGEinar on YouTube, and then stay tuned for future ones. And then let us know topics that you want to hear about. Join our LinkedIn group, join our community, join the conversation. This is what it's all about. I appreciate everyone who's joined us today. And thank you so much for our esteemed panel. You all have been awesome. We look forward to the next one.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you,
Keith.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.